Okay, and now I'm going to switch over and do a tiny little talk on pawpaws. So, here's pawpaws. There's just some pictures of pawpaw trees and the fruit. And, yeah, and the Latin name. Oh, if I'm no good at Latin names, but Asiminia triloba? um, okay. The basic information I have on pawpaws is that they're small. They're kind of they're considered an understory tree, or kind of small and shrubby and bushy. Like, my guess from reading the size and stuff, it makes me think kind of like the size of what you'd expect a lilac bush to be. Like, it can be taller than you, and you could need a ladder, but it's not a white pine or something like that either. Traditionally, they're considered a very Carolinian forest tree, and something you find in the understory. So you'd be walking through a forest and there'd be tall trees overhead, and kind of underneath the tall trees you'd find pawpaws. If you look at their native range, they go like from Florida right up to Lake Ontario. Now there's some stands that have been found kind of in the Windsor, I think even Point Pelee area, but on our side of the lake it's a little bit more spotty. A lot of people think, I don't know if it's climate change, or I've heard some people say they just never made it this far, like after the glaciers, and so that the climate is okay for them once they're established. My understanding is the first 2-3 years is the most challenging, and once you have them established, then they're relatively hardy. So yeah, Carolinian forest. Oh, and they also were very, very popular with indigenous people and European settlers when they first came over. There's a lot of accounts I've read that think like a lot of people who would travel between different living locations during different times of the year would intentionally plant pawpaws along their route if it was the right kind of time of year for them to ripen, so they'd have food ready on the way. They do well in shade. And one thing I've also heard is, especially Janet, you were saying you've got some, is the first year or two, I think they actually like shade. Putting them out in full sun when they're really small, from what I'm understanding, can be a little bit like detrimental for them. But once they're a bit established, they don't necessarily need the shade anymore. So if they grow in deep, deep shade, you don't get a lot of fruit. But if you grow them out in the sun, they'll be a little bigger and more vigorous, and you'll get more fruit. But it might be a nice fit for a food forest where you can kind of give it a spot where it'll get some light, but you don't have to worry about some shading, right? Like, it's got that work well together. I put the black walnut thing in because black walnut kind of puts out natural chemical, it's called like juglone something, and it actually stunts the growth of a lot of plants, but there are some plants, I believe I know
I'm sad to hear this one.
Are you having trouble hearing me?
No, I say I'm sad to hear this one. I have a big black walnut in my butt.
Oh no, so these ones do well with black walnut.
Oh.
Yeah, so yeah, it might be hard for you to do vegetables or certain other trees. I believe mulberry's in the same boat. Like, you can actually look up in tree, like I've got a book that's got all these trees and grids of what they're good for, what they're bad, and like works well with black walnut is a category that a lot of these books consider, and so pawpaw is one that's good for that. The harvest is late summer or fall, so this October, there was a guy who lives in the Calvin Park neighborhood who offered a big pawpaw tasting, and he gave everyone seeds to kind of start and stratify seeds. So that was kind of a neat experience, and his were well established and good. He had like a bungalow, and they were growing above the roof line of his house, so it was neat to see. Okay, pollination. So some trees, with just one tree on its own.
Are you still sharing? I can't see your screen anymore. I don't know if it's me.
Oh, sorry?
I can't see your screen anymore if you're still sharing.
Oh, am I not sharing anymore? It died.
No.
Okay, was it going for most of the time? Okay. All right, I'm trying to start it up again then. There we go. Is that better?
Yep.
Oh, I've got one no, one yep. Okay, it's coming in. Okay. So some trees for pollination can self-pollinate, like the flowers on one tree will deal with it. Some trees are even like one tree's male, one tree's female, and you need both nearby to get pollination. Pawpaws, what I've seen is you need two different trees, and it's not that there's male or female. I read that the flowers are both male and female, but they have like I think every flower starts as a male and then switches over to female, so it's not at the same time. But if you have two trees nearby, then it works out enough. But to note, you can get varieties of pawpaws just like apples. Like you can get a red delicious apple or a Granny Smith or whatever. And to get good pollination with a pawpaw, you want two separate varieties, because if you get two of the same pawpaw, that's like a genetic clone, and then it won't really pollinate itself well. So that's just so. For instance, the two I bought I think from Whiffletree, and I did one named variety, which I wrote the name down. I don't remember right now, and then I got one that they just grew from seeds. So the nice thing, the name variety will likely it'll give fruit that people selected for and said, oh, this is better than the rest. The other one, it's random. It might be great. It might be so-so. But anyways, they'll pollinate each other well, hopefully, is the idea. And a lot of people will hand pollinate them to increase yield, because from my reading, again, my understanding is I think they don't necessarily attract bees, but they more have a funny stink to their flowers, more for flies, and unless you have a lot of them, they don't necessarily pollinate super well. Okay, now we've got the eating pawpaws. I've read tons. Every account I've read says something different, like, oh, it's kind of custardy. Oh, it's a bit like an apple or a pineapple or a mango, and it's creamy, or a papaya. There's lots of description. I would say the shape, they're definitely roughly the shape and size of a decent sized mango. And like I said, we went and so this is a picture of Emmeline, my daughter, and this was us. We got little bits like this to taste in the fall, and whoa, they were delicious. And I sent Mabel a message and had to look it up because I was trying to remember. I was like, they were good, but man, how to describe it? Soft, fruity, and flowery would be the flavor I found. And the texture, I would say the texture was a lot like a papaya, or maybe leaning towards a cantaloupe, but it was very juicy and very soft. I already talked about varieties. Some careful notes as well, though. Other parts of the tree, like you don't want to eat anything except for the right fruit. The seeds are huge. You can't really eat those by accident. They're like, what's the size? They're like the size of an acorn almost. If I go back, you can see in the picture they're quite large. But the leaves and anything else on the tree you don't want to ingest. And just like any food, first time you're trying something, go slow and be cautious, because some people do have allergic reactions to it, just like some people have allergic reactions to peanuts, right? So whenever you're trying something new that's not common or you've never had, you should always just have some caution. Emmeline, when she tried it, she was just like, this is amazing. I want more. Why don't they have these in the grocery store? She just kept going on about it. And this was in October. And when I made these slides, I asked her, what'd you think of those pawpaws? And right away, again, she was like, oh, they were so good. And why weren't they in the grocery store? And the reason you can't buy them is because they have horrible shelf life. They're ready in like a 1 week window in the fall, and you can maybe pick them and keep them on your table for a handful of days, and then they are done. So a lot of people, so they don't transport and store well. And I've been reading a lot of people freeze them. Like they'll do a big harvest then and freeze them and do some sort of, they call it ice cream, but I think it's more like a sherbet or a sorbet or like a blend with them. But based on my little sample, I would say, wow, amazing. Like it's, they taste great.
Nick, we lost your screen again just recently.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
They must be like chirimoyas. They also have trouble transporting them, but they commercialize them as pulp, frozen pulp for juices and stuff like that.
Right. And a great flavor. And yeah, I guess that could be the way they go too. All right, and then I just have a resources slide, which I'm not gonna. A bunch of these I got from Bruce, who is the guy who lives in Calvin Park, and like he did this workshop, so he sent everyone home with a Ziploc bag. The germination is pretty crazy too. He sent us home with a Ziploc bag and you put a little bit of peat moss in and moisten it a little bit, and you keep it in the fridge for months. And now in the next few weeks, he's gonna do a workshop on the next step. And actually, Janet, I wanted to mention to you because you said you had some pawpaws in pots. The one thing he noted too was that the roots go down like crazy and they grow a big taproot. And apparently, like I'm gonna stop sharing my screen because I don't think I have to anymore. But apparently the roots will. People are using milk cartons and things or like huge chunks of PVC pipe because they really want the roots to go down and not get stuck, because I think that can be a big issue with them. And so I think even getting them in the ground long term faster is better from what I can understand from what I've learned about them. So
yeah, I did that 1 year and I lost them because the roots started to tangle, and sometimes I couldn't put them in the soil on time, and then a frost came and killed them all. So that's true. We have to be careful this time to put in very, very deep containers the first year at least.
Oh, okay, my containers are about that.
Or even deeper, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. So, because what I can do is plant them where I want them to go, and then just sort of, while they're young, build like I'm going to say a blisk around them, where beans can grow up them and keep them shaded while they grow, because I know that for the first few years they do not want direct sun, they want to be shaded, and until they're really quite hardy and taking off. So I can design something that I can keep them in like plant material growing over them to keep them shaded.
That's a great idea. When I think about it, I told you I have two, and one died and one made it. The one that died was more in the sun, and I didn't do anything to protect it. And the other one is like almost being eaten by my neighbor's lilac bush, and it's in the shade there. So I kind of wondered and thought, oh, okay.
Same experience. Yeah. I second that. Yeah.
They need winter shade even more.
Okay. Good. Thank you for that. Oh, so we're all learning on a journey together. Does anybody have any more questions or Pawpaw comments before I stop doing the little recording?
They're considered to be an orphan tree, which means that they've lost their distributor. They've lost their mammal that they were designed to be eaten by.
Oh.
Are there any?
So
How was that?
they're believed to have been eaten by megafauna like mammoths, mastodons, and tree sloths and things like that, and that's believed to be the explanation of why they were spread around, because after they lost their partner. So they stayed where they were, where the seeds fell, but they didn't have a distributor, apart from human beings, of course. Other trees that are considered orphan trees are like the Kentucky coffee bean and the avocado, even the Osage orange.